You're standing under the bright, buzzing lights of the arrivals hall. Your flight has just landed. Your head feels heavy. Your phone's battery is down to 3%. And the line in front of you snakes toward a row of immigration booths where officers sit silent and focused, inscrutable. Then that look happens. An officer looks up, scans the crowd, and beckons you forward. No smile, no hint of what they're thinking, just a silent invitation that could determine whether you'll walk straight into a new country or be pulled aside for questions you never expected. Every traveler knows this moment, but almost no one understands what's really happening because the truth is, airport workers don't improvise. They don't guess, and they certainly don't ask random questions. Behind that glass booth is a system designed to read you before you say a single word. Your posture, your bag, your breathing, the way you hold your passport. They study it all, and in the next few minutes, you'll see exactly how it works. You'll learn the 10 airport questions almost every passenger is asked, and, more importantly, how to answer them smoothly and confidently without arousing suspicion. Because whether you're landing in the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, or anywhere else, the logic behind these questions is the same. Say too much, and you'll seem suspicious. Say too little, and they'll start digging. But once you understand the internal logic behind each question, you'll walk through the airport as if you already know the script. So let's start with the very first question, the one that sets the tone for everything that follows. Question 1. May I see your passport? It sounds routine, almost automatic. But at every airport in the world, this simple phrase, "May I see your passport?" is more than a formality. It's the opening test. The officer isn't just asking for a document. They're watching you, your hands, your breathing, the way your eyes react as you step forward. Imagine this. You're walking up to the counter, the fluorescent light hitting your face from the worst possible angle. The officer extends his hand. You start digging your backpack, papers shift, the zipper is stuck, and suddenly you hear yourself say, yeah, hold on a minute. That slight waver in your voice, that split-second panic, says more than your passport ever could. Because airport staff, especially immigration officers, are trained to recognize those little hesitations. Those little signals your body gives when you're unsure, stressed, or hiding something. They're not judging your vacation plans. They're judging your composure. Here's the truth. Passengers who stumble at this first step are often subjected to additional questioning, not out of guilt, but because they seem unprepared, unpredictable, or overwhelmed. So here's the trick seasoned travelers use. Keep your passport within easy reach, not tucked away at the bottom of your carry-on, not somewhere you have to unpack 3 things to get to it. If the officer asks for it, just hand it over calmly. Easy peasy. Say, "Here it is." Or simply, "Of course." No joques, no explanações, no excuses. Because at airports, confidence is paramount. And every second you look like you belong, those glass doors inch closer to sliding open for you. Once you've passed that initial test, they move on to the question that quietly reveals your entire travel story, even without you realizing it. Question 2. How long are you staying? It sounds innocent, almost friendly, but don't be fooled by its simplicity. This is one of the most revealing questions in the entire airport handbook. You step forward, the officer glances at your passport, and then asks in the same flat, unreadable tone, "How long are you staying?" Most travelers panic at this point. Not outwardly, but internally, their minds start to race. Was it 10 days or 12? Should I mention the wedding? Should I explain my itinerary? Do they need the exact dates? And suddenly, instead of a clear answer, you find yourself rambling. Well, I might be here for 2 weeks, but it might be longer unless a friend invites me for, well, you know. And then, suddenly, the officer looks up, not aggressively, not accusingly, but just sharper, because rambling equals uncertainty. And uncertainty is a red flag. This is the truth. Every country records visitors who overstay. The database is behind that little glass cubicle, no trends, patterns, and risks. So if you hesitate, even for a moment, you fit the profile of someone who might not be planning to leave, but is experienced travelers nonetheless. They answer precisely, briefly, decisively, unwaveringly. I'm here for 10 days, a week, 2 months for my studies. Done. No extra stories, no nervous laughter, no unsolicited justifications. Because the officers aren't trying to trap you. They're checking to see if your plans sound controlled or chaotic. A calm, confident answer tells them one thing. This traveler knows exactly what they're doing. And once they hear that, they move on to the question that quietly tests whether your story matches the information they already have about you. Question 3. What is the purpose of your visit? This is the question that can instantly shift the entire conversation from easygoing and informal to tense and inquisitive. You hear the agent say it with that calm, neutral tone. What is the purpose of your visit? It sounds simple, but behind that one sentence lies a whole hidden system. A system that already knows more about your trip than you think. Because here's the truth. By the time you reach the counter, your purpose has already been predicted based on your flight history, visa type, booking information, and even the patterns in your passenger profile. They don't ask because they don't know. They ask to see if you know, and if your words match the digital trail behind you. Most travelers misunderstand this question. They start talking too much. They get emotional. They over-explain. Imagine this. You say, I'm going to visit friends. The officer's eyebrows raise. Where do your friends live? How did you meet them? Suddenly, you're in the middle of a mini interrogation. All because your answer sounded vague. Experienced travelers do this. They stick to the 3 safe categories: tourism, business, and study. The only 3 words that immigration officers immediately recognize and accept. I'm here on vacation. I'm attending a business meeting. I'm studying for a month. Clear, concise, complete. No life story. No details from 2012. No unnecessary context. The immigration line isn't a TED Talk. Because here's the kicker. It's not what you say, but how confidently you say it. If your answer is precise, controlled, and perfectly matches your traveler profile, they'll move on. If not, you might end up at that quiet side door marked second check. But answer the question correctly, and you glide right into the next phase, where officials dig deeper than just your itinerary. They gauge your stability. Question 4. What do you do for work? At this point, the officer leans back slightly, not relaxed but observant, as if your next sentence will reveal much more than just your job title. You hear the question, what do you do for work? And immediately, you sense the shift. This isn't small talk. This isn't curiosity. This is one of the most subtle, calculated filters in the entire airport system. Because your job tells a story. A story the officer can read in seconds. A job means stability. Stability means roots. Roots mean you have a reason to return home. And a reason to return home means you don't plan to extend your stay. If you're a student, the logic is simple. You study, you don't run away. If you work, it suggests structure and responsibility. But if you hesitate, if you mumble, if your story sounds improvised, the officer will immediately move on to the next question. How are you financing this trip? This is the truth most travelers never hear. Immigration officials don't care if you're a CEO or a cashier. They want to know if your life makes sense on paper. So, this is how seasoned travelers answer the question, clearly, calmly, and without unnecessary details. I'm a teacher. I work in marketing. I'm a software engineer. I'm a student. That's it. No self-deprecation. No long-winded story. No awkward explanation like, well, I just quit my job, but I'm hoping to start something new soon. That's verbally the same as opening a door they didn't ask you to open. And if you're between jobs, traveling for an extended period, or retired, there's a better way to say it. One that exudes confidence, not chaos. I recently finished my accounting job and am taking a short vacation before starting my next position. I'm retired and going on a trip for a few weeks. Short, structured, controlled. Because at this stage of the interviewer is measuring something simple. Are you grounded? Or are you drifting aimlessly? And as soon as they see you're calm, they move on to the next question, a question that tests whether your story matches someone else's. Question 5. Are you traveling alone? The officer tilts their head slightly, not suspiciously, but calculatingly. And then they ask the question that sounds innocent, but absolutely isn't. Are you traveling alone? Most passengers think this is an informal, perhaps even polite, question. But from the perspective of someone who works at the airport, it's one of the most strategic questions they ask. Because this is the truth that almost no traveler realizes. By the time you get to that counter, the officer already knows the answer. Your airline shared your information the moment you checked in. Your seat number, your booking details, even who scanned their boarding pass right before or after you. It's all visible on their screens. They're not checking if you're traveling alone. They're checking if your story matches the system. So imagine what happens when you panic. You start talking too fast. You explain too much. You add details they never asked for. Well, I'm traveling with a friend, but she's not quite there yet. She took a different flight. Limit online. That's the idea. And in an instant, the officer's demeanor changes. Not angry, not aggressive, just sharper. Because nothing arouses suspicion faster than a traveler who can't give a direct and clear answer. That's how seasoned travelers react. If you're traveling alone, you say it simply and confidently. Yes, I'm traveling alone. And then you're silent. No unnecessary words, no commentary. Silence is your best friend. If you're traveling with someone, keep it just as simple. I'm traveling with my sister. I'm here with a friend. No names, no background stories, no unnecessary explanations about how long you've known them or where they're waiting. Here's the logic behind it. The more you explain, the less credible you appear. Nervous travelers ramble on. Confident travelers answer, pause, and wait. This question isn't about who you're with, but about how sure you are of your story. Exude confidence, and the officer will move on. Exude uncertainty, and the conversation will last longer. And speaking of longer, the next question goes deeper than just company. It's about an aspect of your life that can make an officer put everything on hold. Your family ties in the country. Question 6. Do you have family here? This is where the officer's demeanor shifts. Not in a threatening way, but in a way that indicates the next answer is more important than you think. You hear the question, calm down, but calculated. Do you have family here? To most travelers, it sounds almost friendly, as if the officer is making small talk. But from the perspective of an airport insider, this question is one of the most strategic filters in the entire conversation. And here's why. Family equals connections. Connections equal a potential long-term stay. And a long-term stay, especially for the wrong traveler, means a greater risk of overstaying your visa. So the agent isn't really asking about your cousin or aunt. They're gauging your ties to the country and how those ties affect your chances of eventually returning home. If the answer is no, just say so clearly. No, I don't know anyone here. Don't dwell on it. Don't panic. No, I don't know anyone here. Really? Or no, no one at all. No family, no friends, no one. Because dwelling on it sounds like fear. And fear sounds like you're hiding something. But if your answer is yes, many travelers panic because they think mentioning family is automatically suspicious. It isn't. You just have to handle it the right way. Yes, my cousin lives here. My sister works in the city. Brief, honest, direct. Because the truth is, the agent isn't judging your family. They're judging your reaction to the question. Do you look away? Does your tone change? Does your body tense up as if you're suddenly guarding a secret? That's what prompts follow-up questions. Not the family member, but your behavior. Behind that counter, the agents aren't looking for perfect answers. They're looking for calm answers. Whether the answer is yes or no, deliver it calmly, confidently, and without a trace of defensiveness. Because in immigration interviews, the secret isn't just what you say, but how calmly you say it. And once you pass this checkpoint, the next question shifts from family ties to your personal history and whether it matches what's already in their system. Question 7. Have you been here before? This is the question that catches travelers off guard. Not because it's complicated, but because it feels like a trap. The agent looks at your passport, then looks up with a neutral, almost friendly expression and asks, have you been here before? Sounds innocent, right? But behind that simple question lies a silent check in the database. A database that already knows the answer before you even open your mouth. Because this is the truth from the airport staff. Your travel history is being recorded. Every entry and exit, every visa, every stamp. They can see it all at a glance on their screens. So why do they ask? Because they're not checking your past. They're checking your honesty and consistency right now. This is a memory test disguised as a conversation. If it's your first time, keep it direct. No, this is my first time here. Don't add, I always want to come here, or I was supposed to come last year, but no unnecessary details, no stories. If you've been here before, your answer should be clear. Yes, I was here last summer. I was here on business 2 years ago. Notice anything? Time frame, clear, simple, controlled. What you absolutely mustn't do is wander into long, nostalgic vacation stories or emotional details about who you met last time. This isn't the place for that. Because here's the trick most travelers don't realize. The officer listens not only to the words, but also to the hesitation between them. If you pause too long, if your voice trembles as you try to remember the date, if you look away for a moment as if in doubt, that small misstep can provoke a deeper investigation. And once that mechanism kicks in, the conversation changes. More questions, more scrutiny, more waiting. This question isn't really about your travel history. It's about your composure under subtle pressure. The kind of pressure most travelers don't even notice. Remember this. At immigration, composure is gold. And if you can maintain it here, you'll breeze through a checkpoint that silently slows down thousands of nervous travelers every day. The next question is different. It's less about your past and more about what you're carrying now. A question that can ruin your trip in the blink of an eye if you get it wrong. Question 8. Do you have anything to declare? This is the question that seems boring until it isn't. The officer looks at you with the same calm expression as before and asks, do you have anything to declare? It sounds like bureaucracy. It sounds routine. But it's precisely here that more travelers fail than in any other part of the airport. Because this question isn't about what you've brought with you. It's about whether you understand the rules. And here's the truth. Customs officials aren't looking for smugglers. They're looking for hesitation. One pause, one nervous, one guilty glance at your bag, and you're suddenly ushered into the checkpoint for a quick check, which is never really quick. Most travelers don't realize how strict some countries are. You might think it's just snacks. It's just vitamins. It's just the medication you always carry. But in another country, that could fall under prohibited items, controlled imports, or undeclared goods. Even a few €1,000 in cash can become a problem if you don't declare correctly. And this is where confident honesty is your best friend. If you truly have nothing to declare, say so clearly. No, I don't. Not nervously. Not apologetically. Not with a long explanation of what's not in your bag. Just clearly and confidently. If you do have something to declare, be honest. Yes, I have a few items to declare. Then stop talking and follow their instructions. Officers respect honesty. They reward it with speed. Because here's the kicker. An honest statement can get you released faster than a nervous no ever will. What they're trained on isn't illegal items. It's about behavior, body language, tone, confidence versus guilt. If you hesitate for even a second, the officer's suspicions will spike. And if they find something undeclared, even if it was an honest mistake, your trip suddenly turns into fines, confiscation, and a whole lot of unnecessary stress. So remember this one rule, the golden rule for airport survival. Confidence can't hide dishonesty, but honesty, delivered calmly, will get you released like nothing else. Once you've passed this checkpoint, you're almost there. Almost. But there's one more question officers use to gauge whether your story checks out or starts to falter. Question 9. Where are you staying? By now, the officer has heard your story. Where you're from, why you're here, how long you're staying, and everything you've said so far paints a picture of who you are as a traveler. But this question is the one that checks whether that picture is accurate. You hear it in that same calm, inscrutable voice. Where are you staying? Most travelers freeze, not because they have something to hide, but because they can't remember the name of the hotel, or because they suddenly forget the neighborhood, or because they panic and think they have to recite a whole address. That's when the officer notices the change, the uncertainty, the searching look, the nervous mumbling. And for an immigration officer, an uncertain traveler is one who deserves extra attention. Here's the truth. They're not testing your memory. They're testing your composure. They don't expect you to know the postal code. They don't expect you to be able to recite the house number. They don't even expect you to remember the booking reference. They just want to know that you know where you're going. So, this is how experienced travelers answer the question. Short, clear, and confident. I'm staying at the Pacific Hotel in Manhattan. I'm staying in an Airbnb in downtown Toronto and with my cousin in Melbourne. That's it. No nonsense. No guessing. No frantic scrolling through emails while the agent watches. And here's a detail most travelers never hear. In many countries, your accommodation is already linked to your arrival card, visa, or flight ticket information. The agent is simply checking to see if your answer matches the information already displayed in the system. When you answer quickly with the calm assurance of someone who is prepared, the agent sees one thing: verification. And verification equals credibility. Because nothing worries an immigration officer more than a traveler who seems unsure about their destination. So remember the basics. Know the name, the city, the type of accommodation. That's all you need. Answer this question. Good. And now you're just one question away from crossing the invisible line between visitor and approved entry. Question 10. May I see your return or onward travel ticket? This is it, the final check. The moment the officer decides whether your story checks out or if something isn't quite right, you'll hear the question, may I see your return or onward travel ticket? This isn't just about paperwork. This is about intent. Your intent to leave. Every country in the world, from the US to the UK, Australia, and Singapore, uses this question to distinguish reliable travelers from potential overstayers. And here's the truth. If you hesitate here, if you start digging through 5 zippers, endlessly scrolling through your email, or are on your phone with only 2% battery left, you immediately appear unprepared. And unprepared travelers are subjected to extra checks. Experienced travelers, however, never wait to be caught off guard. They prepare for this moment. When the officer asks, they answer calmly and confidently, yes, here it is. I'm flying back on the 22nd. Or, I have a connecting flight to Singapore. They know exactly where the ticket is. They'll open it within seconds. No panic, no hassle, no awkward explanations about changing plans later. Because here's the kicker. The agent doesn't care if your ticket is flexible or refundable or if you plan to change flights later. They just want structure, a plan, proof that you're not about to just disappear into the city. And here's a tip most travelers don't know. Even a digital ticket, confidently presented, is often enough to end the entire conversation on a high note. But if you can't find it, if your phone dies, or if you suddenly give the impression you have no idea what your next move is, the conversation will take a different turn and not in your favor. So make sure you always have your ticket handy, a folder on your phone, a printed copy in your passport cover, a screenshot saved offline. Because your return ticket isn't just a document at this point. It's your ultimate proof of credibility. Show it quickly. Show it calmly. Show it without a trace of doubt. And so you pass the final test between distrust and a smooth entry. You've passed all 10 questions, but before you walk through those sliding glass doors, there's one final truth every traveler needs to know. The truth immigration never tells you, but every airport employee knows. The traveler checklist. The calm passenger system. Before you grab your bags and head into town, there's one last thing you need. The checklist seasonal travelers use without a second thought. A simple system that keeps you calm, collected, and unwaveringly confident at every airport counter worldwide. Think of this as your calm passenger system. The mental toolkit that transforms you from a nervous flyer into someone who effortlessly breezes through immigration as if they've done it 100 times before. Here it is. 1. Keep your passport handy. Not hidden, not lost in a side pocket, not hidden under snacks and souvenirs. Make sure you have it ready the moment you step off the plane. 2. Know your story before they ask. Your purpose, the length of your stay, your destination. Say it clearly, distinctly, and without hesitation. 3. Don't overshare. Answer the question, just the question, and be silent. Silence exudes confidence. A rambling story shows uncertainty. 4th, be precise, not detailed. You're staying for a week. You're here for tourism. You're visiting your cousin. Short answers sound confident. Long answers sound rehearsed. 5th, keep your travel documents in a folder where you can easily access them. Return ticket. Hotel information. Onward journey. If they ask for them, open the folder within seconds. No fumbling, no panique. Sixth, pay attention to your body language. Stand firm. Breathe calmly. Avoid nervous movements. Your body tells your story before your mouth does. Seventh, approach the counter as if you belong there, because you do. And that energy, that calm, confident energy, makes the difference between a smooth entry and additional questions. This checklist isn't about circumventing the system. It's about understanding it. If you look prepared, you are prepared. And immigration officers recognize that instantly. And if this has helped you prepare for 2026, subscribe and ring the bell, because the next wave of airport changes is already well underway. Safe travels, traveler. And remember, trust is your ticket.